So, hi, Abel Martinez. Um, what was my general reaction to the film and the chapter? My general reaction to the Fruitville Station and Chapter 8 was emotional and reflective. The film hit pretty hard, knowing that it was Oscar Grant's final day. Um, it felt really personal and at sometimes kind of scary. Seeing his kindness and his struggles and the love for his family really made his death feel more unjustified and painful. The chapter helped me understand how the film uses vulnerability and emotion to challenge stereotypes about the about Black masculinity. It made me realize how powerful film can be as a tool for empathy and awareness. And it doesn't show what happened. It makes you feel like the weight of the systematic racism and injustice in a personal way. You guys think about the what were your guys' perspectives on the film and the chapter?
I definitely agree. It made me pretty angry, especially at how close it was to us.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and not only that, I've been married to a African American man for 16 years, and all my kids are mixed, and it's just it's kind of scary to know that, they have it that hard, that my son is looked upon as some kid that's just going to be a mess up. You know what I mean? I think it's ridiculous. I think that the cop was completely not trained. And I think when it comes to being a police officer, they need a lot more training than 6 months
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
and
agree.
a bigger mental health evaluation because his mental health did not seem
Yep.
stable.
That's what I was about to
Yeah.
say. On
Yeah.
top
Mhm.
of, yeah, there should be more than 6 months of training. And then on top of that, there should be ongoing testing for mental health.
Yep.
Mental health, yeah. And also I feel like police officers should be required to take like ethnic studies courses so that they like
Hmm.
can
Hmm.
understand like those type of struggles that other people from other races like have to go through.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wrong when there were so many things that could have went right, and how
Right.
much one person can really change all the world, and how an individual family can be affected by just that one small change.
What stood out to you in the reading and how does it? Uh-oh. I think I did the wrong question.
No, number two, what stood out to you in the reading,
Oh, I
and
did do
how
that
did?
one.
Hmm.
Sorry. And how did it relate to the various trope stereotypes of one of the core groups within the dis dysphoria of ethnic studies? Let me get my answer. So I think what stood out to me in the reading in the film was the reinforce of stereotypes about core groups within the. Is that the answer to the question? Hold on, sorry. I don't have my glasses on either. Sorry, guys.
No worries.
So specifically related to the Black and African community, I think how the media falls into the tropes that simplify or marginalize these identities, such as portraying Black individuals solely through lenses of like criminality or poverty or victimhood. I think the reading also pointed out how the films like Fruitvale Station work against those stereotypes by presenting a more complex, humanized narrative that highlighted the individuality and dignity of the person involved. I think their approach disrupts dominant narratives and invites viewers to critically reflect on the systemic racism and the lived realities of Black Americans. That's all I got on that one.
Hmm. I think you brought up some really good points, about how the movie illustrates some of the internal struggles that are not just seen from a academic or news standpoint. It really
Hmm.
allows you to explore the emotions of the film without it feeling too much like a documentary or a biography. It lets you kind of feel the emotions of the characters and how that may relate to our real lives since it is a
Yeah,
real life
he was
situation.
human. I mean, he
Mhm.
wasn't perfect. He was human, but he loved his family and he tried. No one's perfect. That doesn't mean that they his life deserved to get took. Like that was yeah. And then
Mhm.
everybody was saying how he was just a drug dealer and that doesn't matter. He still had a kid, he had a life, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so and I gotta go back to the question. Sorry.
We are coming up on 9 minutes.
All right. Thank you for letting me know. We might want to keep it a little shorter when we collaborate, I guess, because
Yeah,
Yeah.
we still do have a timer.
yeah.
Yeah.
I could
Uh
set a timer every time we finish the question. I'll set it for a minute and then I'll be like, hey,
Yeah.
5 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever.
Yeah,
that's a
sounds
great
good.
Good.
idea.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, question three. How did the film and reading make you feel and what stood out the most? Honestly, it brought up a sense of anger and frustration in me, particularly regarding the unjust treatment of Oscar Grant. What stuck out the most to me was the disturbing portrayal of the police officer's apparent lack of proper training and mental health stability, which raises critical questions about the accountability and systemic failures within the law enforcement. The film's intimate and nuanced storytelling humanizes Oscar, moving beyond statistics or headlines to reveal the complexity of his life and the tragedy of his death. And from the rhetorical perspective, the reading highlighted how the film employs emotional appeal and visual strategies to engage viewers on a deeper level, compelling us to confront uncomfortable truths about the racial injustice and institutional violence. That's all I got on that.
Yeah, I I always think like if you're not capable of handling your own emotions, you definitely shouldn't uh be out and trusted with being able to handle somebody else. Like, you know, that's
Having
when
people's lives in your hands.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Me.
Okay.
Ready? How would you describe the main character? What motivates them? And what are the consequences, if any, of their motivations? The movie allows you to really reveal how much about what would be seen as a threatening person to much of the world, but can be revealed more about them when the curtains are opened. What Oscar Grant has revealed to us was his complexities that surround his inner psyche and family emotional pains he was going through during the film. He is a devoted son, boyfriend, and father who genuinely wants to be a positive presence in his daughter Tatiana's life. He does not have it all together as many of us do. However, while living with darker skin in the target of authority can change the way that we view his perspective. Though Grant was not perfect, he represented many average people, and he has a drive and desire to be redeemed and seen outside of his stereotyped restraints. While we see him transform his life slowly before the exposition, the tragic irony of the film is that his efforts towards change are cut short by systematic injustice and racial profiling.
Completely agree with that.
Yep.
I think his daughter was his motivation, and in his heart, he wanted to do good, but
Yeah.
when
Hmm.
you're backed in a corner, what can you do? Like when
Yeah.
you try so hard and everybody's just no, 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 no. It's like you have to resort to what you know and what is
Exactly.
around you
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mhm.
to feed your kid. I mean,
Yeah.
anybody in their right mind, I don't care who you are, I don't care where you come from, if you are stuck in a situation and there is nowhere for you to go and your kid was starving, you would do anything to feed that kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Most definitely.
100%.
All right, you guys want to go to question five?
Yeah. Okay. That was mine. Um, what do the main characters learn about themselves and how do they change throughout the film? Um, I wrote Oscar Grant learns a lot about himself throughout the film. At the start, he's trying to turn his life around after making past mistakes, as as you mentioned. But he's still caught up between doing better and being pulled by his circumstances. Uh, Through his interactions with his daughter, his mom, and his girlfriend, Oscar realizes how much his family depends on him and how much love surrounds him. That awareness pushes him to make small but meaningful changes, like trying to get his job back and staying patient instead of reacting with his anger. His journey shows growth towards maturity, responsibility, and self-awareness. And even though his life is tragically cut short before he can fully make the change, the people around him, especially his mother, also change. She learns the painful reality of racial injustice when Oscar is killed despite being peaceful. Her
Mm.
grief transforms into strength and advocacy, showing how personal loss can spark a deeper awareness of systematic problems.
Um,
Yeah, and I think
in
she was a part
memory.
of the uh the George Floyd movement. She was really involved with that. I remember seeing
Hmm.
her name on the news. Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely push you to try and make a change with something.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100% agree.
All right, who has question 6?
that would be me. How is your attention drawn to particular images? How are these images used as symbols or metaphors? There was a lot of symbols in the movie that really caught my attention. One of them was the interaction that Oscar had with the dog. I believe it was meant to foreshadow his abrupt death at the end of the movie and how his life was cut short. And then after this, Oscar has a moment of reflection when he buries the dog, which results in him dumping out the weed he had into the ocean. It marks a point where Oscar decides that he needs to get his life back on track, and instead of going back to his old habits of drug dealing, another key part of the movie that caught my attention was the fireworks and Tatiana calling them guns and also saying that she was scared when saying goodbye to
Mm.
Oscar when they left for SF. This can also be seen as more foreshadowing of Oscar's death later in the movie, by a gunshot. And then lastly, another important part was when he met Peter and his wife when like she asked to go to the bathroom. And I feel like this was like when Peter was like, oh, like if you ever need anything, like just let me know. And then he left him his card. I feel like this was like a part where like he's like giving this chance to like completely turn his life around and like like be able to provide for his family. And that's like eventually like stripped away from him later in the night.
Wow. I did the what you said, I didn't even realize like the dog thing
Hmm.
that's kind
Yeah,
of crazy. I didn't even realize that. It didn't even like dawn on me that those signs.
the fireworks.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah,
All right, number
7.
7.
All right. How does the film handle the underlying themes of identity politics, ethnicity, race, classism, racism, sexuality, freedom, morality, and intersectionality? So this like film like discusses like very like various different issues that like can plague our society. One of them is like the stigma around being like an ex-convict, and as we know, Oscar was an incarcerated individual. However, the film does more than simply portray him as just an ex-convict. From the film, it's evident that Oscar was a loving father and overall a very compassionate person in the way he interacts with characters. This movie humanizes Oscar and helps us see him as more than just an ex-convict, and instead of fathering a man wanting to turn his life around to provide for his family the life that they deserve. Another important issue in the movie addresses is addressed is police brutality, the use of excessive force, and racial profiling. The officers dealt with the situation in an aggressive manner from the start, and it was clear from the way that they treated Oscar and his friends that reflected like their own racial prejudices. The film
Mm-mm.
also like addresses the failure on behalf of the justice system to properly provide justice to victims of police brutality, and the white officer who murdered Oscar was sentenced only to 2 years but served 11. And to me that's like it really makes you wonder like what it would be like if the roles were reversed.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. To me, like that sentence was just like a slap on the wrist for like taking
Mm,
a life. It
Mm.
was
yep,
Yeah.
ridiculous. It was awful.
I completely agree. Okay, who has number 8?
Me. Let's see here. Does the film identify any universal problems confronting our society? What do we need to do to transform our society? Of course, the film confronts the long known history of police brutality in the States, tied
Mm-hmm.
towards the inner conflicts of many Black men and emotional masks they may put on for safety and stability. Coming from the Bay Area ourselves, what this story reflects is not a distant memory, but an actual struggle in our communities that confronts issues of poverty, gang violence, and police brutality. What we see Oscar go through is clear grief, pain, joy, fear, and only those emotions could be revealed in the eye of violence that he faces in the fate of his film. The
Mm-hmm.
many traits of shame and guilt on his plate, we reveal what the news has noted him as only a deceased victim by humanizing his existence as a Black man. The story ultimately confronts issues with Black masculinity and the ability for Black men specifically to be able to emotionally express themselves without concerns of fear and concerns of violence being directed towards them. And transformation is easier said than done, of course, and requires, as we aforementioned, many notes of ethnic studying, longer training, and of course, the comfortability of race being expressed in different ways emotionally and culturally in our society where we can feel comfortable with Black men expressing themselves and being more softer as we can see Oscar represented in the film.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know what I've noticed through all of the people that have been killed, it's always been their fault.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It directs the universal and systemic issue by placing it on a single person as we continue the pattern that we see in our daily lives.
Or
9.
We're on
9.
9.
Okay.
Oh, okay, that's mine. So, what good insights into life are there in the film and the reading? What does it get wrong, and how might it affect viewers? I think what everything everyone has talked about kind of reflects what this film did really good is that it's shows the complexity of Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
It being a humanizing piece, um, and would for someone who would in like I guess our real life would be relegated to either statistics or another shooting story, right? But by what this film does is by showing him as a father, as a compassionate stranger, and at the same time as a person with capacity for mistakes and aggression, it kind of shows what the author of our reading says David Stamps refers to as like the depth of representation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and by humanizing just Oscar by himself, but it also kind of humanizes the issues around the systemic nature of it, right? Like Chelsea mentioned, this isn't just a man dying in his family. This is opportunities ripped away from him. This is a broken family,
Mhm.
right? And the only possible wrong that you can really think of is that, well, in the reading, is that Stamps did mention that the film is based on accounts from Grant's family, which I guess if you really want to be technical about it, would be like a subjective view of his life.
Mhm.
But the aspect of that self, I mean, this is a counter story, right?
Mhm.
This is the part that we don't get to see in the news. We get to see how the Black masculinity really affects him and how him opening up about his insecurities, like him thinking, and pardon my language, him thinking that he's a fuck up,
Mm-hmm.
that he isn't good enough for his family. Like who hasn't thought of that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and that opportunity ripped away from him, like wouldn't like, and I think Amberly just kind of echo what you said, like who wouldn't go crazy
Yeah.
about that, like
Exactly.
if that wasn't taken away from you. But in the end, what that helps us do is that it just challenges, of course, stereotypes, right? That these different like how we can explore these different identities, and how we can fill in these gaps of knowledge that we have about lives that aren't our own, right? Like this
Mhm.
film almost feels like it's made for people who don't understand the Black
Yeah.
experience with over
Mhm.
policing, right? And that's
Yeah.
valuable to everyone who watches it.
Yeah. So
I
we got 1 minute
completely,
left. We can answer the last question kind of
yeah.
quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we kind of
Okay.
So,
answered it
Well,
with question 9 as well.
oh, cool. All right,
yeah.
cool.
So why is this film and reading important for all students to read and watch? What do we gain from the author of the reading for the film, and how does the film relate to other themes in the course, right? So I mean, like we already talked about, this goes beyond, the whole racism is bad message, right? What we're
Hmm.
seeing
Yeah.
is how do we apply this to our own world? Like we see this in George Floyd's instance, right? And we are able to develop that critical media literacy, right? Not just for the movies we watch, the music we listen to, the things we read, but especially for our news, right?
Hmm.
The way
Hmm.
that Oscar was covered in the news compared to what we know about him now, right?
Hmm.
Um, and we also get some two other things, right, in our toolkit, I suppose, right? Not only critical race theory that we've already talked about, but also how masculinity has affected his life in this film, right? So even especially valuable for people who aren't familiar with the shooting itself. We get a very humanizing portrait of Oscar,
Hmm.
but also the intersectionality of his run-ins with the justice system, but at the same time, a loving family man whose life was taken too short.
I
Right?
think it
Yeah.
also shows people his environment as well, because I
Yeah,
believe your
Hmm.
environment affects a lot. So if
Yeah.
people don't know what goes on in the Bay Area, they're not going to know that
exactly.
that's
Right.
kind of normal. His
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
lifestyle was normal in Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh.